Hi, welcome to Dreamcatcher, the program where you can find peace through understanding dreams and visions. I'm Robin Hardin. My guest today, Solomon Bostic, was a guest a couple years ago on the program, and he shared a very detailed dream. Well, today he shares how that dream manifested not once, not twice, but at least 3 different times so far. Thank you for watching. I am so excited. Solomon and I have been trying to connect now for too long. But that's why I'm excited. I believe that God is really going to do something through today's program that will really bless someone out there, because we've had a hard time making this happen. But this is what's so exciting. Regularly, people tell me that a dream that I've interpreted has come true. And occasionally they come to the studio and we tell you how it happened. But in Solomon's case, this dream has manifested more than once, and yet it's the same dream. It's the same interpretation, and yet it's manifested in different ways in different times. And you know, Solomon, that happens, but I've never had that happen quite like in your case. How it happens and we think that's it, and then you come to church and you tell me this happened. It's like, that was your dream. And
yeah.
So people who are just watching and may not know, Solomon was on a couple of years ago, I guess it's been now, and he had a very detailed dream. And now, a couple of years later, it has manifested and manifested and manifested. So I'm going to let you give them just a short dream, you know, kind of catch them up.
Okay, thank you, Miss Robin, for having me on the show.
I'm excited.
So initially, the dream that I had, I thought I had it all figured out because it's my life, it's my dream, so I just thought I had it figured out. And essentially, I moved here to Tennessee about 4 years ago, and I had this dream where I was in a school building. I was at the Board of Education, so the central office, and there was an individual who was walking me around in this building, and faces seemed familiar, voices seemed familiar, the office layout seemed very, very, very familiar to me. I never saw the person who was walking in front of me. But their voice was very calming, very soothing, and I never saw the faces of the people as I was being escorted around this office. And actually it looked like the floor plan of the office that I used to work at in another state. So that's why I said, oh, I know what this means. But everyone who spoke to me, I didn't see their face, but they were very familiar to me. And it was, hi, Solomon, I'm so glad you're back. When did you come back? And we're so glad that you're here. And people kept saying to me, and everybody who walked past me, it was there was just this bright light. Didn't see their faces. It was the voices of men and women. And they all kept saying to me, well, your office is over here. And I said, I'm not gonna worry about that. I'll get to it whenever. I'm enjoying the journey, and I already know everything is anyway. So, and I just didn't understand why people kept saying to me, Solomon, but your office is over here, and why are you going to all of these other offices? And I just kept saying, I'll just get to it when, I said, it's just not that big of a deal. I'll just get to the office when I get there. And so I walked around and kept being introduced to other people whose faces I didn't see, but the person that I was walking with just kept giving me all of this information about the district, if you will. And then the big department head said, "You have no idea how we have been fighting to get you here." And in that moment, I said, "I don't know what's going on. I've been here before, so I don't know what the big deal is." And he said, "Your office is over here. Why are you going to these other offices?" And I said, "Everyone keeps saying that to me, but I don't know what the big deal is. I'll just get to the office when I get to it." And I was like, the dream ends as the big director, as he's walking away, he said, "I'm going to a meeting." And he said, "I want to follow up with you later." And he said, "There are some things that that we have in mind for you." And I said, "Okay, it more than likely to be stuff that I'm familiar with." He said, "Not really. And oh, by the way, we'll talk about salary and all that stuff later." And I said, "Okay, I didn't come here for the salary." And then I awakened from the dream. And so I talked to you about that dream, and I ended up having to repent. I don't know if I told you that, because the way you walked me through the dream at that particular time, none of what you said was on my radar.
Yeah.
And I still think about it, because that was like 4 years ago now at this point.
It's been a while.
And so here I am now. So I was working in one city that was about 40 minutes away, and then an opportunity in the city where I live now became available, and it was for a position that I really wanted. And I had been looking at this particular district since I moved here, and nothing would open up. And so the last year and about 13 months, 14 months, I end up through a God connection with someone here in our church, made a God connection for me, said, "Hey, are you still happy with being down the street?" And I said, "A job is a job." And she said, "Hey, just do me a favor." She said, "Would you just send me your resume?" I said, "Yeah, sure. I don't know what you're going to do with it, but sure." By me, blind faith, emailing my resume to this person, started a 13-month journey with the director of schools that I now work in. And it was just the occasional back and forth email. There had been a few conversations, through phone calls, but really for 13 months, everything that happened between me and now he's retired, he retired in June, was an email. And what's interesting is my current boss had tried, she had wanted to add another position on the team 4 years ago. And the outgoing director said, right now, I can't see you justifying that.
But even the first job you had, prior to this job, it laid out the same way.
It was almost identical.
Of the dream, yeah.
So the first job that I got when I came here, that executive director for that school district had told the manager at the time, I just I don't see the need
Yeah.
to add a position.
Yeah.
So here I am in service, and I just cried out to the Lord, and I said, I put all of this in your hands, because I didn't have a job for 3 or 4 months at that time. And so I go in to interview for one position. And you know, you go through all of the interview protocols and all the questions and stuff. And so while I'm answering one question, I made a statement, and my then director, she said, okay, interview's over. She said, Solomon, I'm not going to ask you any more questions according to this protocol. She said, just talk to me and just tell me what you did. And I said, okay. And I began to walk her through. She said, you have hit every bell and whistle. So there was no position.
Yes.
Zero, zilch, none. I interviewed for one position,
Yeah.
and there was no position. So after my interview, she goes back to the executive director. She takes all of the interview questions, my resume, and he says, if this is who you're considering, you can now create a position.
Be anxious for nothing, but in everything. Now notice I didn't say for everything. No. It's in everything. It's a difference. I don't praise God for the sickness. I praise Him in it, because I know He's going to break through.
Join Pastor Johan at Love's Way Church, Sunday morning at 10 a.m. and Wednesday evening at 6:30 p.m.
It was being here in this church, people knowing what situation I was in, you being one of those people, and some of the other elders, just y'all had this knowing, he's supposed to be here. Solomon, we know you're supposed to be here.
I told you that early on when I saw you. Like, what do we have to do to make this your church home? Because you were visiting or something. We weren't sure that you were here to stay. And it was just like, he has a place here. And after the first dream, when we talked about it, I don't know if it was part of the dream or just in our discussion, but I remember the phrase, we have an office for you, we don't know what to name it. And it was very familiar to you, which this was familiar, even though you didn't know the people, it was what you did. It was everything you've done. They took your resume and they opened a position around it. That's why it was so familiar. And also the fact that your office is over there, and you're like, yeah, I know, I'll get to it. That
Quite embarrassing, actually.
But when you think about it, you went to the first job, which was the exact dream manifest in the physical, and yet your office was over there. And now that we know, I believe it was over there because it was not just the first job, but the second job that you're actually in now, that it was referring to.
Yes, and what's interesting is when I was at the first job, I had no office.
Right.
I didn't, Ms. Robin, I wasn't even sitting in a cubicle.
You didn't make it to that office.
No, you're right. So my desk was in a corner up against a cinder block wall.
Oh dear. Because they had to make a position for you.
They had to make a position.
So when I think of your dream, your first job was you walking around and it's all familiar, but I'll go to my office, I'll get there. And as we're able to look back, because, you know, we know in part, as we look back, we go, well, that's why he didn't go to that office immediately in the dream, because you didn't have an office in the first job, and it wasn't the
I
office.
had no physical office.
And so it was coming later. And even before, so that's the first time it manifested. And then the job you're in now, but it manifested also in between those two, and I told you about that when the Board of Elders and the pastors went on a retreat the beginning of this year, and we sat around and we talked about who the new leadership is that we want to bring on board. And pastor says, I want to, his words were, create an office for Solomon. And then he says, I don't know what to call it yet, but I know that we need him in leadership. And I start crying. And he thinks it's just because I'm happy for you, which it is. But I said, that's word for word what Solomon and I talked about was, we want, in this dream, there's an office for you, but we don't know where it is. We don't have a name for it. It's over there somewhere. It's kind of obscure. We know it's yours, but we don't know, we're not there yet. When he said those words, it's like, that's what we talked about. I have an office for him. I don't know what to name it. And when we finally end up with a name, it's the leader of, minister of, director of discipleship, which is teaching, which is the schoolroom you're in. You were in a schoolroom in that dream, a school building in that dream.
I was.
And that's what this is. You're not a teacher. You are the director of discipleship, to bring in the new people that are coming in, to teach them the way of the Lord. And we had an office, we just wasn't quite sure what to name it yet. I mean, it was like, how more exact can that dream be? And then you come and tell me, hey, the dream's manifested again. I'm like, again, how does that happen? It just shows you how we thought was a one-time thing. With God, he was showing us so much more. We think God is this, and we ask God for this.
Right.
And he has so much more.
Much more, yeah.
And and I believe because we recognized the first time, the first job was an answer, that was that dream. But because we accepted that and knew that, he gave you so much more. Because
I believe that.
as I was telling you, it kind of happened around the same time that the board meeting happened, that you were telling me about the second job. It was almost like all this happening at the same time.
My first day on the job, my director said, hey, Solomon. And when she said, hey, Solomon, it triggered. It triggered the dream for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she said, remember how I told you that we were moving people around? She said there was someone else in this office, and just before I had walked in the office, before she took me to the office, she saw the maintenance person, and she said, is Solomon's office ready? And I looked at her and I said, I have an office? She said, yes, you have your own office, like my own office. No, she said, we moved a whole bunch of people around for you to have the office that I'm about to take you to. She said, I'm giving you 2 weeks to get your office decorated. So she said, I'll walk you around the building and I'll introduce you to everyone. As she's walking me around day one, everyone kept saying, hi, Solomon. We've heard so much about you. We're glad you're here.
It's familiar.
It was familiar.
Yeah.
I didn't know their names.
Right.
I didn't know their faces. I was welcomed. And my director was the one leading me around.
Wow. Just like in the dream. Exactly like in the dream.
The dream. And when I saw you in the lobby, it dawned on me.
Mm-hmm.
It was like I just had this moment of clarity.
Yeah.
That the office, as I was walking around with this person
Mm-hmm.
whose face I didn't see, my office, the way that I saw it in the dream,
Uh-huh.
it flipped around. I said, oh my gosh.
My office is over there.
And when I was talking to you, I said, oh my God. That's what was in my dream. It was just flipped the other way.
Because it was a mirror image. You were looking at it in a mirror image. It is flipped the other way.
Walking, Talking, Debating, and Arguing with God is a lighthearted collection of short stories depicting some of Robin's real-life experiences and testimonies. You'll laugh and cry as Robin shares her plight of being the new kid year after year. Take a trip along Robin's spiritual journey, which she describes as straight and narrow and straight up the side of a mountain.
I know you thought I was a guitar player, didn't you? Mm-hmm. I'm a drummer. By trade, that's what I do. I play at the guitar. And sometimes we as God's people play at a lot of things. Did I say play? How about going through the motions? You know, I'll come to church on Sunday and come to church on Wednesday, and I'm here and I do my praise and you know, all that good stuff. What about your heart? I'm talking to the person that's looking at me going, man, I got heart problems. I can't get up. I can't seem to overcome this. Well, you may have had a dream in the past and no one's tried to interpret it. Tune in to Dreamcatcher. Send them to us. What we're going to be? Wrong? We're here to help you. We're not here to say big I's and little U's. We're here to help you walk the walk God has for you. Because remember, the footsteps of a righteous person are ordered of God, even when you don't like the path that He's put you on. But remember, He said He would never leave you, and He wouldn't forsake you. He'd be there with you, even to the end. In your circumstance, I'm talking to somebody right now, your circumstance is about to end. There's going to be a shift. Catch your dream. Watch what God does in you. Till next time, look forward to seeing you. Bye-bye. Catch your dream.
If you've backslidden, if you can backslide, you can slide back. Slide back! Amen. Hi, I'm Robin Hardin, host of Dreamcatcher, the program where you can find peace through understanding dreams and visions.
Are you looking for a speaker for your next retreat or event?
Have you met the recruiter? There's only one. Have you met him?
So I don't know where I am, so now I'm sitting on your sofa.
I can tell you some of what he's saying. He's training you to hear his voice. And we all hear it differently, but he's training you that it's not a vague, broad thing, like you're very prophetic and you can talk to other people, but sometimes that's harder for you to do in your own life. And
Yeah,
because
true.
that gift is for someone else, it's not for you. So that's easy. But then when it comes to you, it's more difficult. It's also showing that God is limitless. And I truly believe, had you not recognized the first one as being, oh, this is God, I don't know that the others would have happened. He gives us a little, and we know if we're faithful with a little, he gives us more.
Yes.
But that's what he did. He gave you little. You didn't even have an office. But your dream, you had an office. It was just over there. So it could have been very easy to go, but was this really my dream? Because I didn't even have an office. You know, you get hung up on a detail that we think we understand. And neither one of us knew that that office being over there was because over there in the future, you had an office coming. But you had to be faithful with knowing and recognizing and telling God, I know this is you, receiving what he has for you. Once he's got you believing that and trusting him, then he gives you something else. And then he gives you something else. What I'm about to say is going to sound like I'm saying this because it's our church, but I'm really not. We have some of the most spiritually mature young people. I mean, our teenagers and our 20-somethings are at a spiritual level that a lot of adults aren't. They understand the prophetic, they understand hearing from the Lord, they understand the gifts of the Spirit. I mean, some of them I have in this seat, some of them I have, come up to me in church events, and they're so well spoken, and they seem so grown up. I was married with a baby at 18. Well, I was 19 before the baby was born, but I wasn't that mature. These are young men and women at 16, 17.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's amazing. And so when you were chosen by God, God chose you. He just whispered in Pastor's ear to be over this particular group of people. I mean, that's not like just anyone coming off the street and we're going to make you the youth leader. This is beyond that. This is not just a little youth group somewhere that kids to get together and get them out of the house.
Right.
I mean,
absolutely.
We're seeing these young people moving in the power of the Lord, and you're going to be over that. You just adopted a whole bunch of babies.
Yeah.
Thank you, Robin. But very mature babies that have hearts after the Lord,
Yeah.
but the enemy knows that too. And so he's going to be working extra hard on them because he knows these young people are a threat to Satan's plan.
Catch your dream.
The Bible tells us that God's ways are not our ways. His thoughts are higher than ours. Today's program with Solomon's situation is a perfect example of that. God's talking to you. Make sure you recognize him. He wants you to know what he's saying. Catch us here next time on Dreamcatcher and catch your dreams.